Coming to from the defiance of America.
It's the Bob and Bob Show.
We have more wealth and income inequality than almost any major country on earth. And it is more unfair, more unequal now than at any other time since the Gilded Age of the 1920s.
Their criminal list, a drug dealer gets a thing called the death penalty. Our criminal list, a drug dealer gets a thing called, how about a fine? And when I asked President Xi, I said, do you have a drug problem? No. I said, you have 1.4 billion people. What do you mean you have no drug problem? No, we don't have a drug problem. I said, why? Death penalty.
People who analyze the program fully understand that America's civil liberties are well protected.
The terrorists attacked us and killed 3,000 of our citizens before we started the freedom agenda in the Middle East.
In 2006, the Bush administration urged Congress to revoke posse comitatus so the U.S. Armed Forces could restore public order and enforce laws in the aftermath of natural disasters, terrorist attacks, and other conditions. Congress went along with President Bush's request and passed it as part of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2007, taking out posse comitatus.
People who freak out about chemtrails are the funniest thing ever. What are the planes doing? What are they spraying in the air? What are they spraying? It's water vapor. What, you look at clouds and then be like, what is that? Poison bombs in the sky? What are those things? And why is that giraffe floating? What's happening there?
There is a network that works through government agencies, through organizations like the CIA, etc., to push an agenda on the world, which is unfolding by the day.
Go to bed, sheeple, it's late. Open your eyes. Open your eyes.
Yes, y'all. It's the Bob and Bob Show. Visit us at bobandbobshow.com. And as always, my co-host, the bearded one, is with us.
Yo, I'm here.
Yes, the 24th episode. We also have Chops. What's up, Chops?
Not much, thank goodness for that inning when it told us to open our eyes because I was getting bored to death.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also special guest J Stylez is in the house, everybody.
Yo.
We'll give a round of applause for J Stylez.
I wanted to clap anyway.
You wanted to clap?
Yeah. I finally made it.
So,
Yep.
Is everybody cocked, locked, and ready to rock today?
What does that even mean?
I don't even know. You got your double barrel shotgun with you?
I don't, actually.
We're gonna start shooting off some information.
I did bring my wool hat and my rubbers, though. Where are your rubbers?
I fired off my load at the massage parlor.
You were at the massage parlor?
I just don't want to get my feet wet in the rain.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, for some reason they say, you've been here 4 hours, fat boy.
Well, anyway, we got people joining our email list, and if you want to do it through text, you can text Bob and Bob Show to 22828 and get on the email list, and we'll be sending you some goodies and some freebies on from different occasions and stuff like that. And we'll be having some events, and we'll be having some hats and T-shirts and all that kind of funny stuff.
Yeah.
So let's dig right in, man. I got a whole bunch of stuff going on today. The Dow Jones and the markets have shown, let's see here, the longest weekly running streak in nearly 24 years.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, I know. I mean,
That's
we know.
all I say.
Yeah, it's all false, but this might be a ploy to. What's so funny over there?
We just.
What does that even mean?
We're just doing our thing, man.
What does it all mean, Becky?
Anyway, they're talking about it's the longest weekly running streak in 24 years, and apparently it's because Mr. Donald J. Trump has been working with China on some trade deals.
And that affects the entire Dow?
I guess. I mean, the Dow hears something and it changes, hourly if it hears something with trade, or the Federal Reserve says something.
Well, the Federal Reserve has control of all of it. That's kind of where I was going with it. They can adjust interest rates and change everything instantly, man.
Well, they're not a shadow banking industry anymore. They're actually in the light.
Yeah.
So people don't pay attention to that. Football and basketball and LeBron James racist ass is more important apparently.
Well,
television.
People pay attention to how the stocks are doing and how it's going to affect their portfolios. But I mean,
well, and the other thing about it too is, they're always talking about how it's the highest running in 24 years. If you look at a 30-year period in the stock.
Right.
You're always going to be at the highest point in the 30 years.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right.
It goes up anyhow.
Dude, check this out. I can use the price of silver to display this very accurately. Like, okay, back in 2008, silver was worth like $4 an ounce, okay?
Yeah.
By 2011, it was up to $38 an ounce.
Right.
Right now, it's at $15 an ounce.
Right.
So if you go back 10 years, like 2009 to 2019, you'd be like, it's at the highest it's been in 10 years.
Right.
If you shift that up and say, in the last 8 years, it's at the lowest it's been in the last 8 years.
Right.
You have to look at the whole picture, dude.
Exactly. Well, and then let's look at it in 20 years. It's going to be higher than it ever has been.
In 20 years, it'll be more than 38 an ounce. If you look
Exactly.
at the trend of the last 50 years.
Right. It always
Yeah.
ends. It's just like the housing market. People
Right.
freak out about the housing market. Oh my God, the housing market's at an all-time low. Well, you got to look at it over a 30-year period.
It's a long game.
Right.
And it's timing because of, it's self-evident. Timing is very important.
Well, what's going to happen to the stock market when Bernie Sanchez becomes president?
I don't know.
Sanchez.
Will it go away completely?
Well, if Bernie Sanders, he's going to start giving away a bunch of free stuff apparently with this democratic socialism.
It's
and
not free.
Well, what is it?
Everybody pays.
He
for
doesn't.
It.
He doesn't have the power to do that anyway. Not unless we continue to give executives more and more and more and more power, and by the time Bernie gets elected, it's a kingship.
He'll just claim national emergency.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Look, they're not going to pull out a Donald Trump's playbook with the national emergency thing. I think they're learning from that. People don't like the fact that this is a national emergency.
Donald Trump learned it from those before him. It doesn't even matter what people like.
Yeah,
They'll do
Obama did it.
can.
Bush did it.
All of them.
Yeah.
Have. And the problem is that the whole problem with this executive power overreach is that the government itself is accepting it. Congress is accepting it. The problem is that national emergencies proclaimed by the executive branch are supposed to be for serious situations where where it's so dire that a decision has to be made right now. It's supposed to be an actual emergency.
There's thousands of criminals.
Like
we're
a nuke.
actually being invaded.
Right.
Like a nuke dropping in freaking,
We have
anywhere on the
military
seaboard.
forces coming to town.
100,000 people just got nuked in 1 second. Do we have time to vote in Congress?
No.
Make a decision. That's
Exactly.
a national emergency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And hey, go back to your point about Bernie Sanders and the free stuff. The problem with this is this democratic socialism is they need to get the hell away from that word, because half the people don't even know what socialism is.
No, they don't.
They don't know what democracy is either.
They don't know what the difference between socialism and communism is. So socialism has become a bad word. The police force, the fire department, that's socialism.
Well, if you want to be really technical about it, a politician getting a paycheck is socialism.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're already we already have socialist institutions.
There is no government in the
country.
world that isn't socialist.
Yeah, so they need to get the hell away from that, because it's freaking people out. And actually the far right is using that as a marketing ploy.
Oh yeah,
to scare the shit out of people.
Yeah. It's propaganda wars, man.
Yeah,
it ain't nothing.
It's crazy. So back to like Bernie Sanders, free healthcare. It's not going to be free.
Yeah, you're going to get taxed.
It's
for
not
it.
free now.
I know, but here's
Somebody's
the
paying
thing
for it.
here's the thing that just
it's never going to be free no matter
gets
what.
me.
It's a positive right.
That gets me every time is people complain, I don't want to pay taxes for health care. I shouldn't have the choice, paying $500 out of my paycheck over the course of a couple of months via taxes for health care, but have no problem dropping $200 per paycheck for employer-sponsored health care.
Yeah,
how does that even make sense? That's
here's
it's
where
gonna
I'm
cost
at with
less in the long run.
I don't want government control over my health care. I don't want to be mandated or taxed because I don't have health care, so now I got to pay for it anyway.
Dude, first we have to.
Then they're going to mandate a chip.
But you have
Mandate your bill in
that
your
going on
arm.
already. You're already
Right.
being forced to.
The
to
government's
pay for,
already controlling health
Yeah,
care.
you're already, and they're already forcing you to pay taxes for wars that you don't want to have to
Right.
go on. So
So-
why would we argue about something like health care?
Wait a
Like
minute,
at
wait a
least
minute.
let's get something out of this. Deal,
Let's
right?
get down to the base of first of all of what rights are. Let's talk about this real quick and then go back to that because it'll lead right up to it.
All right, go.
Okay, there's a difference between rights. There's rights called negative rights and there's rights called positive rights. Here's the difference. Negative rights already exist. Negative rights exist just because you're here. Negative rights exist without government. They exist just because you're alive. They are of no obligation to anybody. Like the right to defend yourself, the right to feed yourself, the right to pursue happiness, the right to pursue liberty. Healthcare, arguably, is a right. Is free healthcare a right? No, that's where we get into positive rights. Okay, the right to take care of your body and claim your own health situation is a negative right because it's already there a government or power structure can either let you have it, it's already there, or they can deny it.
Well, you should be able to choose. You should be able to choose if you don't want to take their shots, you don't want to take their drugs. You can do it, naturally if you want.
We're almost. You can do that. You do have that right. We all do. Okay, so that's a negative right. Positive rights are when there is an obligation to somebody else. If Social Security is a right, it's a positive right because it requires a social obligation from other people. That is where you have to tread lightly. We have to tread lightly on all of it, but you have to tread lightly because liberties can be infringed upon when rights are either not recognized or positive rights are enforced because it takes away it puts a burden on somebody else for you. You know what I'm saying? So are they good or bad? Not necessarily. We just have to understand the difference of what they are. And now as far as like social programs and socialism, me personally, I don't have any problem with any of it. The reason is because it can be a good thing. Here's where I have a problem, is when it's mandated, because that gives all of the power to the centralized structure of power that controls this social program. They now have all the say and you have none of it, and they can pretty much do whatever they want. I mean, this is obviously on a scale, you know what I mean?
Well, already, even under capitalism,
it's already that way.
Now it's crony. So what's happening is you know, if you watch TV and you see these drug commercials and stuff, it's like, take this drug, it'll help this disease, but you're going to get all this other stuff.
Right.
You're going to have bone marrow transplants you need.
Yeah, I'm in no way making an argument for our system working, because clearly it doesn't. I'm just explaining the fundamentals that's underneath all of this.
So what's a solution? That's the idea.
Well, what's not a solution?
Is liberty the solution and freedom?
Liberty should always be the solution. Can we have massive social programs with liberty? Yes. Can we have other choices? Yes, we can have all of that, but what it requires is honesty and accountability and transparency in the power structures, and that is what the American people, whether they're full-on tankies or you know, extremist anarchists and everybody in between, nobody is doing that. Nobody is holding the power structures accountable because, as you can see, it is always trickle up. The power always goes up. The power always comes from the population, and the power structures always take liberty and power whenever they can. And under even a democratic socialist model, it'll be no different as long as the people that are already controlling things are still there.
Well, it's just a big show.
Right.
They're just out there jumping around on stage like actors.
I mean, either way, the same people are making money. It can be completely socialized, or it can be privatized. It can even be privatized and contracted, as long as it's responsibly done and the accountability is there. It could work. So can we have a socially democratic healthcare system that appears to be a welfare state? Yes, but like a government-sponsored healthcare. But if there are no other options, who's to say that the government's not going to do what is already happening through government, because these corporations are writing law and keeping competition.
You know, this doesn't matter anymore because nobody pays attention. So who cares? They're just going to do whatever the hell they want.
What I'm saying is the model change isn't necessarily the solution. The motive change has to be.
Look, and the big thing too is, you know, a lot of this stuff has been proposed as different options. You know, a public option is what it was. The problem is a language problem. The way that they're trying to explain it to people and people's understanding of it is jacked up. You know, they say single payer system, and people think, okay, there's going to be one government insurance company, and it's going to control the quality of care.
Sure.
No, it's a single payer system. They pay it. It's still going to be controlled by the private insurance companies. You still have the option to choose Aetna or Blue Cross Blue Shield. That's how it was set up to work, what Obama originally proposed.
Right.
That's how it was set up to work. It's just being funded from one pool of money.
Yeah, one taxpayer pooled money.
No, I get what you're saying, Joe, and that as long as that can be transparent and held to accountability, it's a pretty good design. But
it's a language problem. Most people don't even know anything about it.
Well, the reason that wouldn't go through, there's a couple reasons why that wouldn't go through. One is that it was mandated, and the other, which that
mandated as in you don't want their health care, but you're getting taxed for it anyway.
You're a criminal if you don't pay.
Right. Well, but here's the other side of that, real quick.
Well, the other side. Well, wait 1 second. The first problem is that it was mandated. The second is that the same people that are still making billions wrote that law too and made it what it is, and that's why it's going to fail because they're not going to let go of all.
Oh, and then the
money.
insurance companies, what they do is
at the end, that was the compromise. The version of it we got was the compromise because of so much resistance from the right because of the bill.
Well, the right and the left, I don't even acknowledge the difference because they're the same, dude. They're controlled by the same entities.
The problem is within the healthcare structure, you got the insurance companies in bed with the healthcare industry, and they're bargaining with each other. So if you and me were to go and say we need a drug or a pill or whatever we need for disease or whatever we got going on, we're going to pay top dollar for it if we were to go in there and bargain. The insurance companies will go in there. Something that if we were to pay out of pocket, let's say $1,000, insurance company will go in there and pay $100.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So now they're wheeling and dealing underneath us, and then we're either paying monthly or we're getting mandated or whatever underneath Obamacare or whatever.
At that point, a solution would be where they have to be transparent about pricing. Well, they have to show what their billing is to everybody in their pricing. It has to be public record. That way you can be like, well, no. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't a single-payer system where everybody is insured, wouldn't that eliminate that problem?
It could,
where there is no more bargaining, you're paying top dollar for it?
As long as it's not corrupted.
I don't want to pay top dollar. I mean,
you wouldn't be because the insurance company, you would have insurance. It would already be negotiated.
It would be one or the other. You'd either be getting a good deal or you would be paying top dollar because you don't have a choice. They give it to you.
You pay for it out of your taxes, but we're already being taxed. The question is, where does the money go? That's
why I say taxation is theft because we don't agree with where the money
nobody
goes.
paid attention to the Tea Party and what happened in that situation.
Well,
we should be going out of control over
Check
taxes.
this out. Let's look at government mandate and the nature of mandate and coercion. Let's look at it at its core. We'll just compare it to something else, okay? So insurance. Let's say now this is where I say I'm not going to support it if it's coercive. If it's voluntary, fine. You know what I mean? It's great. Government programs can be awesome if they're not mandated. If they're mandated, it's a tyranny, and here's why. So let's say it's health insurance, and they're like, okay, we have this health insurance plan. It's good for everybody. It's good for the nation, but you all have to participate. This is how much you have to pay in. I guess you could even do it on a Marxist design where they decide how much your share is, whether it is realistically congruent or not. So you're basically given a bill like this is what you have to pay in. You get your health care, whatever, and we also can control what the treatment is and all that. But and you have to bow down to that. That's coercive because you're being forced to do it under penalty. Okay, that's no different than if you agree with that, then you also have to agree with things like forced conscription. And there are people that do agree with that. Like the draft, the military draft. You get a card in the mail and it says, hey, you've been chosen. You have to go to war now. If you disagree with that, you also have to disagree with mandated health care because it's the same principle.
You don't have to take part in the health care. You don't have to go to the doctor.
But they fine you if they punish you if you don't.
But not if we go to a single-payer system. It's just the tax dollars are used to pay for the medical care.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the reality is, and they just took it away because they just found it unconstitutional, is that some of us paid a lot of money because we didn't want to have Obamacare because it was 4 times more expensive than our private option, and they hit us on the tax end for not doing it. So the government pays you for not paying your mafia tribute, basically.
And that's what it is. They're just going to...
Or fines you. I don't know
It's a dog and pony show and like, one taxpayer system, and it's going to fund health care. But in reality, you're going to pay more taxes because the healthcare industry and the insurance companies are all in bed together.
Yeah, the entire insurance empire has to be dismantled if single payer is ever going to work.
Yeah, well, it would force it to. That's why there's so many people lobbying against it.
Well, yeah,
that's why
lobbyists.
There's such a big deal. That's why it's even an issue.
Right.
And they're marketing it to people to try to break it down when every other civilized nation, and granted, it doesn't work perfectly anywhere.
Well, nothing does.
But it works.
Well, we get a lot of drugs that get pushed on us because of this now. A bunch of different drugs for things that we don't even need.
There is no doubt that there is absolutely no doubt.
They're going to show you. They're going to show you gay people. They're going to show you transgendered people, and they're like, "Hey, you need to take this pill so you don't get AIDS."
You know what?
Hey,
Come on,
speaking of that, Canada's had free health care coverage for a long time.
Yeah, and it works.
Yeah,
it works really
works
well.
there.
In fact, people here, politicians, basically try to tear it apart and say how terrible it is. But then if you ever
well, it doesn't benefit them yet.
Right, but if you ever look at anybody that comes from there, and I have actually I work for insurance companies, medical insurance, so I know a lot about the subject.
Yeah.
I've got one of the trainers that I had. She's from Canada, and she said her health care was top tier, second to none.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, granted, she pays a lot more in taxes, but this is the
What
thing.
does she mean by
Does
health
she,
care,
though?
though? I mean, is she getting drugs pushed on her?
But
it's not
cost of
that-
living and
it's-
pay rate is also higher up there as well.
Exactly, and
No,
you
that's
gotta
why you
look,
have to work with percentages,
and
not
you gotta
numbers.
look at the quality of life too.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right.
You know, it's like people are bitching and oh, my taxes are going to be higher.
Listen.
Free healthcare, free college. Yeah, but guess what? Your quality of life is going to be better. You're not going to have a $100,000 tuition bill at the end of it if you've got
There
free
is
education.
absolutely no doubt. There is absolutely no doubt that the cost of higher education in the United States is absurd.
It's insane.
And there is also absolutely no doubt that healthcare in the United States is a legitimate crisis.
Absolutely.
But moving on to coercive Marxism is the wild swing in the other direction. So what we need is real solutions. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that socialized healthcare isn't a real solution. I'm saying that it can be part of a real solution.
There's more of a
You know what I
unity
mean?
in Canada. Everybody's more cooperative.
Well, it's a totally
listen,
different culture.
you know, we can talk about Canada, Sweden, and all these different places, but none of us go there and have experienced it. So you're just getting outside influence from people that
I've
you've
been to
talked
Canada.
No, you have not.
Yes, I have. I've been to Toronto.
Have you been on their healthcare system?
I've
Have you
been-
lived over there? Do
I've
you
been-
really know?
I know people that have.
I know people too. My sister ran over there a bunch of times. You know,
I can
mean,
read.
what,
I can
what
read a
really
book.
is it? What really is it? Because what we're still getting is a bunch of stupid drugs that are helping one issue but making a whole bunch of other issues.
Well, that's by design too. That entire paradigm has to
So
go
I don't
away,
care if you're
or
in a
universal
socialist.
healthcare will never work.
I don't care if you're in a socialist place or if you're in a democracy like we are, capitalistic craziness. These giant drug companies, they develop products, they test themselves, and they release the paper, say it's all right, but yet you're going to have all these freaking side effects where you might end up dying or getting some crazy brain disease or something, but your ALS will be under control.
Well,
you know what I mean?
And that's
Like-
where your liberty
bleeding.
and your freedom comes into play of
Yeah.
how you choose to take care of yourself.
Well, that too.
To
And that-
prevent.
But that's another.
things.
That's
And
another
granted,
argument.
I know you have a situation. You know, you've got people have things going on that is just inherent. You know,
Well,
what I mean?
there's also another argument that why should I have to contribute to this guy's crappy lifestyle mistakes? You know what I mean?
Or why
But-
why is it that
So these issues are deeply systemic.
Absolutely.
You know.
Well, and the system that we're in now feeds into that. There's
Of
a
course
reason
it
why
does.
there's the poor
It's nurtured.
people. The poor people don't have health care. They eat shitty food because they make a double cheeseburger $1.
It's a real stupid generation
And
right now.
if you want to eat a healthy salad, you're looking at $13 or something.
It starts
to
with
put
the
it together.
individual.
You know, there's a big
well, it
And
doesn't
education.
dude, it doesn't help the fact that the environment
education. Yes.
the environment is just flooded with chemicals and crap anymore because they're putting preservatives and additives and everything all
Yeah.
the time. And that dude in the beginning talking about chemtrails, it's water vapor.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
we know for a fact that people all across, and this is only in NATO countries, it's been tested
Well,
that
yeah.
aluminum and barium
It's not a
is
secret
falling
anymore.
from the sky from these planes.
Are there
So that
contrails?
stupid idiot that said that is another subversion technique.
Well, he's
right
not
there.
lying. The contrails are out there. Water vapor is a thing, but so are chemtrails.
Well, that's a way to
it's not
steer the
even-
public because they're like, oh, he's so funny.
It's
you know?
declassified.
He's so funny. He must be right. You know, it's comical. And then they hear somebody talk about real chemtrails. You're like, oh, you're such a joke. That's water vapors. I'm too stupid to look at it myself.
The morons are
And
funnier.
you know what, Bob, you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned education. That's all of these problems stem from education.
Well, there's education and there's miseducation.
Well, exactly.
Disinfo.
And the availability of good education
Yeah.
for everybody. You know, there's a reason that you've got economic areas. You got the hood and stuff like that. There's a reason why the education system sucks there. And if you go to richer areas that have higher incomes, the education gets rated higher
Sure.
and things like that.
I mean, that's always been the case. How does that ever change? But
redlining.
One thing is that there's always going to be a bell curve of wealth, and that follows everything else too, like the quality of life bell curve, and all these different sectors of societal sectors that can be scaled on curves with the bell curve. You know what I mean? And some, I see people all the time arguing about how, there's this many poor people and this and that, and like. There's still a bunch of poor people, capitalism's failing and all this crap. But if you really look throughout history of people's real practical lives, and, I'm talking all the way back hundreds of years, and what it's like now, it's, and it should be this way. Like Bernie said earlier in our intro there, he's like, people are rich, the rich is richer than it's ever been. Yes, that's part of the story. The rich are richer than they've ever been, but so is everybody else. Even people.
Well, I don't know how you would judge that actually, because
with numbers, dude.
Well, with numbers that skew statistics.
No, because the bell is a lot taller now, so there's people way, way, way up in the clouds. Yeah, but look at everybody else that's higher up than they were. Economic improvement's a real thing.
I'm not seeing any more money in my bank account. I'm not seeing anything else go on better for me.
I haven't cashed an Oprah
It's one
check.
personal situation. We're talking about an entire society, man.
But one personal situation is the reason that. People like Trump speak to people and things like that.
Well, yeah, that's where it gets lost in the fog, dude.
Well, they don't understand that Trump lifted all kinds of regulations on stuff, and all of a sudden now these predatory lenders are,
and that's
those loan sharks that go into the ghetto, where what is that, like your payday loans or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Those were getting shut down under the Obama administration, and now all of a sudden they're back in play again, and they're all in the ghetto.
Those should be shut down because they're predatory, but also it's personal choice, and they're preying on ignorant people.
Well, you see these supporters of
desperate
Trump.
People.
You see the supporters of Trump. They're like, he's lifting regulations. He's bringing jobs back. No, he's destroying the economy. He's destroying the environment.
Well,
now these freaking companies can puff all their smoke up into the air and screw up the ozone in the atmosphere and everything else. The predatory lenders can come out and start sucking everybody dry.
Right, well,
that's what's happening.
Well, that's one small part of what's happening. What I'm saying is that poor people are nowhere near as destitute as they were 100 years ago. They're not even close to those conditions.
Agreed.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And that's all. I'm not, obviously.
So you're saying because you have a cell phone, you're not poor as you were 100 years ago?
I'm saying that same position in society 100 years ago probably went 3 days without any food. Yeah, that's a fact. And they probably didn't have shoes either.
Well, they probably grew their own food too, and they were allowed to.
When they could.
And we're healthier.
It's called, evolution.
Yeah.
That's what we're about.
What I'm saying is that in general, in this society, we're in America, life is better now than it's ever been since the inception of this union.
That's just your perception, dude.
Right.
What do you mean
No,
it's
it's
better?
not. It's
We're under
completely
mass
verifiable.
surveillance. We're doing
talking
wars
about
all over the globe.
in some
Economically,
ways,
I'll specify. Economically,
Okay.
we are better than we have ever been in the history of the United States. Today, in 2019, is better than it has ever been.
But we have a massive, bigger drug problem than we ever have. We have higher.
That's manufactured.
Higher mental illness.
We have
than
cancer
That's
ever.
rates
skyrocketing.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, in some senses, economically, you're correct.
I'm speaking on a
better
very
off.
specific issue
Right.
right now. I'm talking about economically.
Quality of life, though, has been shitty for the lower people, no matter what. It's just a matter of.
Well, shitty's still shitty, dude.
Right.
Good is still good. But
I guess, but I mean, if your dollar's been devalued, I mean, since 100 years ago or since 1913, a dollar would buy you a hell of a lot more than it does now.
well, yeah,
And
of course.
so now they got to keep hiking the rates, Now you want a baseline minimum wage. You want all this stuff, but yet your fuel still costs more money. Your automobiles cost more money.
Yeah, I'm not saying-
everything costs more.
Maybe
not
we
saying-
should regulate some of that.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not
Regulate.
audit the Fed.
Regulators.
I'm not saying there isn't a class war. There certainly is. I'm just saying that we're in a better place than we've ever been. It's that's not a bad thing. Are there a lot of bad things? Yeah. Is there a lot of exploitation? Of course there is, man.
Right.
I mean-
Well, and we've evolved economically. Now
Yeah.
it's time to work on some of the other parts. Of
Well, we can
society.
keep working on economically too.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm just trying to keep an accurate frame of reference, is all. Because
I agree,
You know,
but-
I see people on Facebook like it's so hard. I have to go to school and have a job, but I'm like, you know what your great grandfather's life was like when he was your age? you wouldn't make it 2 months. You know what I mean?
Right, but great grandfather could have got a decent job if he worked hard and
Maybe.
supported
Yeah,
a
work
family
ethic-
and
work ethics have
supported
gone
a
down.
family and
It
things
depends.
like that.
Yes.
People are lazy these
Yes,
days.
and it depends on where he
Real
was at
lazy.
and what he had to do to get to that too.
True.
though.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on the halfway point. That was a quick 30 minutes there, or whatever it was.
And it gets faster every week.
We'll catch you on the other side. Bob and Bob Show.
Whoa. Hey.
It's truly bizarre that we find ourselves today in a time in U.S. history when the executive branch of the federal government deems it plausible to consider judging American citizens worthy of being killed on American soil, regardless of what the Constitution says. And the judicial branch, which the Constitution says is supposed to make all those judicial and criminal punishment determinations, is losing its power to the executive branch, while our rights to due process are fast becoming a distant memory. And equally important, talk of tinfoil hat conspiracies. The guy in the gun shop, guys who are talking about that, the overreaching government fearing people, they no longer have to depend on right-wing fringe websites. It was easy to dismiss people like that gun shop guy when all he could quote was an email he got from somebody. But today, the assertion by the President of the United States that he might kill you with a drone, it's on the front page of the New York Times. It's talked about throughout the mainstream media. A United States Senator, Rand Paul, held a talking filibuster on the topic today on the floor of the U.S. Senate. He's probably still standing there. Good luck telling the gun shop owner that he's crazy now. As a result, more and more Americans are starting to fear their government, which they perceive as being no longer constrained by the Constitution. Since fear is what usually drives hate, we're seeing more and more right-wing extremist hate groups. In fact, according to a new study by the Southern Poverty Law Center, the number of conspiracy-minded anti-government patriot groups reached an all-time high of 1,360 in 2012, while the number of hardcore hate groups remained above 1,000. There's only one way to put an end to all of this fear and to the hatred of the government that is sweeping our nation, and that's for us to return to our core values, the values on which this nation was founded. From the birth of our nation to today, millions of Americans have fought and died for a very specific set of values that we used to abide by, and many of us gave our lives to protect. These values included having a judicial branch that made all of the judicial decisions, decided who lives and who dies based on a transparent due process. These values included the U.S. military never turning its gun on U.S. citizens and U.S. soil. We must return to these values. And to do that, we need to undo parts of the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, and the Patriot Act to give extrajudicial killing powers to or take them away from the executive branch. America was once the land of the free and the home of the brave. It's time we became that once again.
Welcome back. We're at the Bob and Bob Show, as always, on Saturday, and I have Bob, Chops, and J Stlyez in the house today.
J Stlyez.
We were getting into all that healthcare stuff there before.
Starting
so
to.
We're gonna try to change gears a little bit and
boring.
Yeah. So, Chops, since that's so boring, I think we were discussing why
healthcare.
Everybody thinks you're a homosexual. Because you talk about everybody's penises and their butts and everything all the time.
They don't hear any of that.
Yeah, nobody hears any of that.
I know, but you talk about it around us. As soon as the mics turn off, you're talking about butts and penises.
That's my word against yours, officer.
Oh, yeah? Well, then
I have
we
no
do have
idea what
footage.
you're talking about or
footage.
fantasizing about.
We have footage.
Yeah, and we also have...
That's inappropriate for the show, by the way. You
That is
putting
inappropriate.
sexual advances on me.
Nobody was trying to do any sexual advances on you.
If you say hi to him,
You
that's
can't
a
see
sexual
that over the
advance in his
radio.
eyes.
That's hearsay.
I mean, didn't you just have some duct tape, some shrink wrap, and a rope?
But that was to capture a producing engineer.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm his lawyer.
That was
That's
to
a
catch a
welcoming
predator.
gift for Jay Stlyez.
You were what?
That's my BTK gift for Jay Stlyez.
What, a BTK?
It's
What's
a
that?
care package.
It's Jay
He
Stylez.
doesn't know
Welcome
BTK.
again. You don't know BTK?
No.
Bind, torture, kill?
Yeah.
No, I had
BTK
no
killer?
idea. I don't get that.
What
deep
was that
into
guy's
it.
name? I don't remember that dude's name, but he was like some community, like city council, Boy Scout leader, church going, youth group leader guy.
They usually
and,
are.
Yeah, and he turned out to
BTK.
be like one of the worst, most sadistic serial killers ever. Like on one hand, he's taking care of his elderly mother. On the next, he's got some chick tied up in the trunk of his car.
He got away
you know,
with it for like 30 years.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Sheesh. So that's the kind of news you follow?
Yes. I like John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer.
That's who you like?
BTK killer. It's
Everybody's got to have a role
intriguing.
model.
That's your role model?
Role model, most definitely.
Oh,
Hey, if
Killer
you're going to do
Clowns?
something, do it right.
Yeah, if you're going to do it big.
But
Follow
if
the
you're gonna
best.
do wrong, right?
You just figure out what they did wrong and don't do that.
That's right. The ID channel is how to get away with murder channel.
Yes,
yes,
it's a case
yep.
study.
Yeah, ID, Discovery,
so
Animal Planet.
Animal
that
Planet.
stuff.
Reels. There's a $2.99 is Reels. There's all that investigative stuff.
That's what you watch all the time. So you don't pay attention to any real news. You just watch all this.
That
crazy
is
stuff.
real
Wait,
news.
what is real news?
That is real
What
news.
is fake news?
That's
Fox.
That's more real news than the
Well,
CNN.
yeah, network news is
Then
infotainment.
Donald Trump's building a wall. Ugh.
This is infotainment.
So boring.
Infotainment. Well, anyway, so let's talk about China for a minute. You guys
No,
want to talk about China?
no,
China.
no,
China.
no. Let's
China.
talk. Let's talk about.
I had one beer.
One beer.
one beer.
I'm having a beer now.
So
too.
China is they're developing a non-lethal weapon system based on microwave radar technology.
Infant spawning for China.
And this weapon shoots millimeter microwaves at targets to inflict pain under their skin.
Yeah.
Glorified laser tag.
It's a laser gun, is
So
what it is.
and apparently China. Trump is always talking about China, and actually in the beginning he was talking
Death penalty.
about yeah. He's like, there's a death penalty for drug dealers.
We're gonna shoot him with a
They don't
laser.
have a drug problem.
yeah, you know what, dude?
He's got crack. Shoot him with the laser.
We're going to cook them from the inside out.
For him to proclaim something like that to the entire nation without taking any other factors in is, dude, just I don't know. Trump gets more and more authoritarian every time he opens his mouth, dude.
He's a douche.
He's talking about putting walls up to keep drugs out and killing drug dealers and doing no-knock raids and taking guns away without due process and all this stuff and all these, these
He's a
people
real
are
tough
still
guy.
there's still so many people out there that are like, yeah, he's my right-wing buddy. Dude,
Let's
he's
see him
he's
go
a
into a
straight-up
crack
fascist
house.
if you want facts, man. Jeez.
Right.
Trump, get the ram. Go into the crack house. I want to see you do it, big
Well,
guy.
he's a billionaire. You don't get to be a billionaire by being super honest and nice to everybody.
Right. You just file bankruptcy a bazillion times and cheat and
not pay
swindle.
Not pay any of your people by filing bankruptcy and stuff like that. People, is he a brilliant businessman? What do you mean by brilliant businessman? You don't have to be a good person to be a brilliant businessman. You just have to be really good at business. That has nothing to do with ethics and morals.
If you're a billionaire, you're a freaking crook.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned this before.
Yeah, we
too,
have,
but
because if you have swindled so many people out of their money to make billions,
nobody makes
you-
billions on accident.
Yeah, but
And
Bill
honestly.
Gates.
Right.
Bill Gates didn't swindle anybody. Who
Yeah,
did
he did.
Who did he swindle?
He was brutal,
Microsoft?
dude. Are you kidding me?
Steve Jobs. Who did he
Yes,
swindle?
yes. He took a lot of patents and, dude, look into how Bill Gates. Yeah, straight up, stole patents. He had lawyers that were more
Same with
powerful than
Zuckerberg.
his competition's
Zuckerberg
lawyers.
stole
Yeah.
Facebook from college.
His roommate.
High corporate
Yeah.
influence like
Old
that is
Zuckerberger.
incredibly brutal, dude.
Zuckerberg.
It's a war. is what it
Zuckerturd.
is.
Oh, FBI informant on the highest level.
Yeah, well, they're collecting all your data just like China. I mean, they got the facial recognition working for you, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like in China, you're walking around and the camera picks up your face and
Hits you with a laser.
Yeah. If your credit's screwed up, you can't do this and you can't do that, and the little camera will grab you and say, "Nope, you can't buy this, you can't buy that, you can't do this."
He's jaywalking. Pew!
These are real draconian extremes, the kind of stuff that Orwell warned us about. And it goes back to what Jacques Fresco was saying. When you have to use political mandate and when you have to force law, it's nothing more than a proclamation on the wall saying, you don't do this, or you, if you do this, this is what happens. It's basically saying, well, we can't fix this problem, so we're just going to bark at you and punish you if you do it.
Yeah, fix the problem. What's
It
the
doesn't
big
fix
deal?
anything. Killing drug dealers in China so they don't have any drug dealers? No, they do. You just kill them when you find them. It's not really
until they get on the payroll and until they bargain and do deals with the police.
Yeah, and you're bringing up the point that it's easily
coming up
corruptible
through the
because
gutters.
That's
to
exactly
get you.
Yeah, it's not a systemic solution. It's
right.
it's just funneling more power to the people that are already powerful, man.
You know,
and
they-
so many of our human dynamics do that, and we have to fight our own nature to keep that from happening.
They kill the dealers that are in competition with the ones that they want to keep around.
You're absolutely correct. That's
Right.
right, man. Yeah.
Well, hey, let's speak hypothetically for a minute.
Like the U.S.
How do you
government
guys feel?
controls
I
the
mean-
poppy fields in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying, how do you feel about humans in general? I mean, are we just inherently evil, or are we really nice people? Like, let's just say
We're
that
both.
let's just say we lived in this utopia. Money isn't a problem, and you have all the things you need, and you have a good time with life. Would you still have criminals? Would you still?
It wouldn't be as
Absolutely.
many, but yeah, there would be.
There's
Do you think
ne-
people would still steal from people?
Of
Even
course.
though they
There-
got everything they
Yes.
need?
Yeah.
Nobody's
Because
ever
people are
happy.
greedy.
Nobody.
It's
It's never
greed.
enough.
Right.
Greed.
Which is why like socialism tends to fail because people are greedy.
Right.
And the people that are drawn to positions of power and political power and the political class, they're the greedy ones.
Well, let's talk
Right.
about
By
let's talk
nature.
about people as a whole.
So
like the
all
peop-
power structures
you know,
have
the
to be checked.
civilization, not the power structure.
I got
Us, the peons
As
of the world.
as an individual.
Yeah, are we normally pretty nice to each other? Well, you see a car accident and there's big trouble going on, you might jump out and help.
In your
I will.
daily life,
Oh,
on
yeah.
an individual basis, most people are driven by compassion and kindness.
Right.
For the most part.
So how come, if most people are driven by that, how come the world isn't like that?
Because when you get groups of people
Jealousy.
together, it becomes an entity of its own. It's called mob mentality.
We
and
bring
it's
out
in-
the worst in each
Yeah, and
other.
it takes away personal accountability. So people inadvertently can blame their immoral actions on the actions of the group as a whole.
Right.
It's how you end up with things like police brutality being excused, and there's always scapegoats too. It's how it's how corporations end up doing things like wrecking the environment for profit. Well, I didn't do it. No, you're just one of the 100,000 people that was part of it. Yeah, you did have a part in it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like when we were kids and we all did bad stuff growing up.
No,
Sure.
I
And
didn't.
that's a part of learning too.
Yeah, we weren't supposed to do, but that's why there was
I don't know
always
where you
like
grew up.
a couple of friends. Like, all right, should we do this? And it takes the group together
Yeah.
to come up with the idea to go do it,
Sure.
knowing that it's wrong.
Right.
Because individually you would never do something like that. But
Sure.
But
It's the jump off the bridge syndrome.
Like Chops
dude.
jumping off the railroad bridge when we were kids.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that.
All three of us thought of that at the same time.
Come on, Chops, you could do it. You could do it. He's like, screw you guys. I don't want to do
Hell no.
it. We all agree. You
But
should
then-
do it.
And even
And then what happened? I landed on a railroad tie. First
Wait,
time I
I've
jumped
never
in.
heard this
Boop.
story.
Oh yeah, Mudbrook.
Mudbrook.
First time I jumped off the
What
railroad
happened?
bridge, I landed right on a railroad tie. Boom.
Yeah, there was a
Break
bunch
your
of.
leg or what?
No, I climbed out and jumped again.
No, there was a river. There's this little.
Just to the left.
we got ourselves an infantryman.
Well, there's like this creek. There's this creek.
We
that-
want you.
Well, the army dug this creek for irrigation reasons or whatever, and there's a railroad bridge that went over it, and we'd sneak off when we were kids and go hang out and party over underneath the railroad bridge. But then we get a little tipsy and start jumping off the bridge into the river or whatever. Actually, it's a creek.
Not too tipsy that you
It's a
couldn't
river
get,
when you're a kid.
not too tipsy that
I
you
mean-
couldn't get out of the muck that was at the bottom because you sunk up to your knees and you fight to get out of the bottom
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
muck.
You're like drowning. You got to wiggle and get out of the mud, dude. It's crazy.
So the people up top are
Sounds
going 1
exciting.
Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. You get to 5 Mississippi, there's somebody jumping in to help you.
Right,
Oh,
right.
jeez.
And we got to that a bunch of times
Yeah.
too. So, yeah, but that's the crazy. Is that the herd or,
Man,
or the
I
mob
miss,
mentality?
I miss
Yeah.
being that age, dude. I really do.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, you'd rather go just jump off railroad bridges than
Right.
work 12 hours a day.
Yeah,
Of course.
absolutely. You know
lay
what
in the,
though?
Lay in the field all day long, all night long, just
Well,
looking at the stars, not doing nothing.
The world is at your hands at that point. You know,
Yeah.
everything's a possibility.
Right. The whole future is completely untold.
And to get back to what Bob was saying, we didn't never snake each other in the back just to be happy. It was a group happiness, so maybe it is possible.
Well, we
it
bring out
is.
the worst in each other, and we bring out the best in each other.
It can go any way.
Yeah,
Because what you have to look at is that another thing you have to consider is that the idea of what's good or bad and what is evil or good or any immoral or amoral, that is all completely subjective. It's all creations of man, and it's based on cultural norms.
Our
And
worst,
you know what I'm saying?
Our worst
So
never affected us. It never made us unhappy. Our worst made everybody else unhappy.
Well,
because we were happy.
We have to always consider. That's true. We have to always consider, though, that all of these values are completely malleable. the scale is practically holographic, dude. It's complete. It's just
sliding
it's smoky.
scale, yeah.
That's why it's so hard to have these discussions, because it makes sense, but at the same time, it's all just completely opinion. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, it's
well, and like you said,
Oh, no, it's
culturally. I
fact.
mean, that's why certain things are acceptable and
it just
far
depends-
off places, and then
Yeah.
the Western culture goes, well, you can't do that.
Yeah, it depends on who you're talking to.
Right.
Like some of like Eastern medicine, they laugh at chemotherapy because if you really look at what it is, it seems ridiculous that doctors would accept that as normal practice. But here, it's like that's what we do. Or then like wiping butts with hands in some places of the older rural Middle East and stuff like that. You have to look
Whoa.
at what their options were, so that shapes your cultural norms too. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like environmental factors. If somebody was raised in a poor atmosphere or whatever, then they might tend to be a little more aggressive. They might tend to steal more. They might tend to look at the world totally differently.
That's a gauge on human suffering, and people are. That's a good example too. You can take it to the farm, like somebody that has always been eating
Take
cheese.
it to the farm.
Take it to the farm. They've been eating cheeseburgers and chicken nuggets their whole life, but they've never killed a chicken or a cow. The idea of being faced with that for them would be traumatic. Having never killed anything, to have to kill their dinner they don't get to eat, that would turn their world inside out.
Well, that's me.
To a farm boy, it's just a 2 p.m. activity, man.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like there's a frame of reference in everything, and all of that makes all of it completely malleable.
That's a great point. You never think of things like that, and it's like, I will devour a steak.
So you get,
but you're not going to kill the cow.
But I will never kill a cow.
So you get into a situation now. Say
one.
you're a cop.
You say you would date one.
So this is
You
how
mean
it
you would
happens,
date
though.
one?
I have.
Now, say you've decided to be a part of the law enforcement community because you want to help your community. You drank the Kool-Aid, you bought all the propaganda, whatever it may be. And there is a reason for law enforcement, and there's a lot of help to be done that they can provide. But say you get pulled into law enforcement culture, you go to school for criminal justice, whatever it may be, you go to the police academy, you become a cop. You're getting institutionalized. You're being pulled into a culture of law enforcement, and you are going to start to renormalize some of your values and recondition yourself based on your environment. And before you know it, you're shooting dogs and laughing, because at some point, if you allow yourself to be so immersed in that culture, it can end up there.
Well, you missed a huge step.
Do you see what I'm saying?
You missed a huge step when
I know
it all
I did.
started. They were Poindexters and kids who didn't get along with other kids and outcasts.
Well, those can be
they had
personal
to grow-
reasons to become
So they
a
had to
cop.
grow up and get a badge, so they had some sort of authority, had some sort of say-so, and be able to dish out their aggression on people that they felt wronged them when they were younger.
They also end up being indoctrinated.
Not all.
Not
but
all,
that's
obviously.
a great
75%.
But you are going to
Northeast Ohio police
say you're not
officers.
one of those guys, and now you are working with them, and you're in their culture, you're with them every day. You see what I'm saying? It becomes a systemic creature of its own, and that's where the lack of accountability can come in, and where you can it can become a culture that's a little sociopathic. You know what I mean? It's the same with corporate culture, man. When it's all the focus on the numbers and and you're buying the sales pitch and all that, and like, we make this company awesome and profits and blah blah blah. And there's at some point, people have to start questioning, what are we really doing?
Right.
We got a question.
And what do we really want?
Back to the police officers. I mean, half of them don't even know the laws they're enforcing. There's so many laws on the books that how could anybody actually know anyway?
They
And this goes back to
manipulate 'em.
Jacques Fresco. You're making laws, but you're not making any solutions.
Right.
So now you're throwing everybody in jail. The prison population is out of control.
That's
People
big
are
business,
on drugs.
baby.
You're shooting people.
Well, then there's the other
This
part
is
that's
exactly-
big business,
this
and
is
that
exactly
makes it
how-
absolutely horrid.
It's privatized.
Mafia.
Jail system is just absolutely insane.
The war on drugs is the absolute worst tyranny that has ever been perpetrated on the population of the United
No,
States.
the biggest
if you
crime
look at everything
is-
that has stemmed out of that,
Yeah,
dude.
Well, it's caused violence. It's caused.
It's most of the violence.
Yeah, it's created the problem.
It's not even the gun problem. Isn't even a gun problem. It's a drug policy problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the prison population problem is not a prison. It's not a criminal problem. It's a drug policy problem.
Yeah.
It's
You know what I mean?
and privately owned prisons. I mean, if you own something, your main goal in owning something is profit, right? So why would you have privately owned prisons that you claim aren't making a profit? We're not doing anything wrong. We're not cutting corners. We're not letting things slide so our numbers are up and our
they just say
assault
that
rates are down.
Well, they just say that they're cleaning up the streets.
These
it's
inmates,
a one-word answer,
these inmates
you know?
aren't just making license plate, folks. License plates. I mean,
Yeah.
they're out there farming. They're baling hay. They're milking cows. Like,
well, self-sustaining
camps,
prison is
yeah.
one
yeah,
thing,
well,
but-
you know,
Camps.
at camps,
Well,
yeah.
And the other sick side of that too is they always say when a family member goes to prison, the family goes with them basically.
Yeah.
Because they're making bank off of you trying to call or communicate with your loved one.
Commissary,
Well, not to
closing.
mention that dad is not around anymore. You just destroyed the family. What? Why? What was he doing? Selling drugs? Oh, he's a businessman, so he's a criminal?
Or not paying
You know
child
what I mean?
support.
Big Pharma sells
Yeah.
drugs. They're not going to jail.
I mean, we're looking at the moral inconsistencies here. You know what I mean? And just people are starting to call some of this out, but it's nothing new, and people haven't been paying attention enough and haven't been loud enough. But I think Generation X has really picked up a big torch on that at some point. The millennials are doing it too, but they're still kind of young and naive about stuff, and I don't know, man.
Well, and it's oh man, I just had a
Pew, pew, pew.
That happens all the time, dude.
The Chinaman stepped in. Pew, pew.
We come in peace. We come in peace.
I take your memory.
China.
Oh man. Well, I mean, it's a big fiasco, and I guess people just don't pay attention enough anymore.
Well,
that's what the point was.
Ignorance is bliss.
Is what you said at the the first half of the show is it starts with education.
Mm-hmm.
Everything does. The quality of life, your health. Making sure you pay attention to issues like
it's an
this.
individual
Discipline.
burden.
That's what it is. It's education.
If
You mean
society-
like Obama's Common Court education?
If society
Yeah.
is going to thrive,
That was Obama's.
individuals
Like he
have
sat
to
there and
thrive.
wrote it.
No, he didn't write it, but I'm saying he mandated it. We've talked about this on the show, how local schools take funding from the federal government or the state, kind of goes up a chain, and they are required through this funding to actually have to give the stupid-ass Common Core or other stupid freaking curriculums that they have. And
Aren't they getting rid of that, though?
I don't. Well,
Yeah.
under Trump, they're getting rid of it. That's
Which
how it's going to
most-
be claimed on the right side.
Well,
Most of
the
the
other
time,
thing
most of the
about-
time, it's playing a movie.
Well, I don't know. My
For a
dad's a
period.
mathematician, and he knows the long way, the short way, how to do math problems. And my son was bringing home this weird way of doing things, like drawing it out so long and so just drawn out
Backwards.
Well, it's where it gets the kids so freaking frustrated that they never actually end up learning it.
They're trying to show kids how to do larger math problems in their head on paper, which can be super confusing and hard to teach because it's kind of something you just pick up on your own. The traditional way of doing it is simple and to the point. But then after a while, if you learn how to think with numbers, you can do Common Core in your head easily.
Yeah.
But you can't do it on paper for some reason. At least
Yeah.
I can't. But I do Common Core in my
I
head all
naturally
the
did.
time.
I naturally did it in general before it was even a
Right.
thing. That's
But
how I always broke
I think
numbers
I know
down
what makes
anyhow.
it so hard, dude. It's because they're presenting you with it halfway finished.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you have to backtrack and think of how they got to where they're at first before you can finish the problem.
Well,
if that
how?
makes any sense.
And on the next note here, how are these kids going to be able to sign the back of their checks?
Right, getting rid of cursive.
Because
Well, they write their name.
Yeah, man, like cursive.
No, they won't have to. They'll just scan the barcode from their chip reader.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Drop of blood.
Thumbprint.
Bloop.
Yeah, facial
Thumbprint.
recognition.
We'll go back
Iris
1,000 years.
scan.
They'll scan their iPhone over it.
It will be iris scans and shit.
Yeah,
but,
well-
you know.
Here's the other thing with the school system. Like, let's teach these kids like some stuff that they're gonna use. I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, they need to have like a credit class, like teaching you about how to use.
We used to have
credit.
home ec and
Like
things
bubonics?
like
Right. But go in and yeah, I mean, teach them how to banking and credit and how to build credit and build wealth and.
Teach them how to do dishes, because every time my son
That
does
was home
dishes,
ec.
it sucks.
You know what,
Absolutely.
dude? And this, Joe, this goes back to what you were saying before. Some school systems do that stuff. They have to be able to afford it,
Right.
and they have to actually care enough to do it
Well, here's where the money comes in.
and know how to do it in the first place.
They get it from the state gets it from the federal government, and now there's all kinds of mandates and ways that you're supposed to
right.
do it.
It's
Local
the whole
tax dollars.
It's the benefactor control factor. It's like if you're you're college kid and you're broke and you need dad's credit card to get through the week. Well, guess what? Now dad gets to have an opinion on what you spend your money on. So it's the same way with school funding from the federal government. The federal government gets to have a say on what you're doing with their money and how you're teaching people. And that opens the door to a tyranny. And it goes back to the same thing I'm always preaching, is that all power structures have to be checked and balanced, or they do eat. They're hungry. They are out of control. They will take from you and give to themselves.
They're big, fat, and bloated.
Like taking away the Pledge of Allegiance.
And I don't even know. Have they taken away the Pledge of Allegiance? I don't even know.
I know they definitely removed God from it.
And that's fine.
I don't have a problem with that either.
How is that fine?
Because if we're going to
church and state have to be separated.
Yeah, if we're going to be honest,
church and state. That's the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, that's church and state.
If we're going to be honest about,
that's not a
because
not
everybody believes in God.
Yeah, not one nation under God, right there. Like,
yeah,
right
not
there.
Everybody believes in God.
You
so
know
why
what?
do they have to say it?
You know what it used to say on
Because I said so.
U.S. coins.
Well, shit.
Before it said "In God We Trust," do you know what it used to say?
What?
Mind your business. It really did.
In Latin, right?
No, it was in English.
Oh, it said "Mind your business."
Yes, literally, it was 3 words: "Mind your business."
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under the
Jehovah,
under the Anunnaki, in
under
space.
clouds,
Allah,
under the sun.
Wait, have you seen that car commercial where the guy does the pledge and then he does one nation under God?
No, I haven't.
Individual.
Oh man.
It's like, I see a demographic you're reaching for, pal.
Well, we got F-150s.
It's a Chevy dealer.
Yeah. We got 1500s.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't believe in God, then you must believe in Satan, and you're a Satanist.
But if I don't believe in God, then how can I believe in Satan? Because Satan is a creation from that.
Yet another duality within human history that
You gotta
uses
have
us
dogma.
to separate us.
You got to have
just
dogma.
like the Democrats and Republicans or whatever.
No, it's nothing like that.
Oh, really?
Nothing
Tell me,
like
Chops.
that.
Fill me in.
Well,
listen,
no, you better be careful saying that to him, dude. He's
if
gonna
you
get
don't
behind
have
you.
faith in something, you might as well just cash in your chips right now.
You can have faith in whatever you
everything
want.
just
Yeah.
spontaneously combusted. You believe in the Big Bang Theory, really? An atom just turned into all
Well,
this.
we're part of
I
the
don't
Big Bang
believe
right
that.
now.
I believe none of that.
Dude, we're on. The
look.
Earth is not round; it's flat. First off,
What?
You can no.
It's not flat. I've been on mountains, dude. They have mountains and hills.
But you can be spiritual and not religious.
Right.
There's a difference. Religion is organized, and
It's a
organized
power
religion
structure.
is.
Listen,
There's a lot of good from it, but there's a lot of evil from it.
Each religion is
lot.
created so that each individual person can understand it in their own way.
Well,
Buddha, Catholic, Baptist. It's all worded differently and different thoughts and different beliefs so that you can get an attachment to it and have a belief in it. But it's all centered around the same thing. There's just one power that's greater than we are, one being that's greater than we are.
but it gets exploited. It's largely created by humans.
Yeah, and I don't have to think that it's an intelligent being. It's not sitting there making choices.
It's a different
playing
kind of
things.
intelligence, man.
That's how I feel about
Yeah.
it. There's definitely something, to me, there's definitely something greater, but I don't think it's sitting there puppeteering the world.
No, it's not some dude in the sky shaking his finger.
That's not
how it works.
That's not the higher powers' mission, is to puppeteer everybody. Everybody
But
has
some
free
people
will.
believe that.
Yeah, some people think
And
that.
there's laws, there's
Well,
commandments.
those people are ignorant.
Right.
Those people are ignorant.
But-
The commandments are just basic rules. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not steal. Thou
It's
shalt
a
not
moral
honor
code.
your mother and
Begin with,
father.
though.
It's a moral code, but there's exceptions to all of it too. I mean, if there's always like, well, we can make an exception for this because it fits our agenda. There's always some of that.
Well, what
in
if
there.
I told you, Chops, that Christianity in itself is just something from the stars that the ancestors used to look up at, and they used to depict certain things.
It's cosmic.
Yeah, cosmic. That's the end of the show,
That's-
people. We'll come back at you with the next one. Bob and Bob.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thanks for coming on there, Stylez.
Yeah.
Work it.
Chops in the house.
Work it.
BobandBobShow.com.
Work it.
Drop it on my lap, J Stlyez.
Why do you want me to drop it on your lap?
Because he's gay, that's why.
Because you're built like the Pillsbury Doughboy.
I think all four of us are.
Yeah.
More cushion for the pushing, baby.
Uh-huh.